Here is how the summer ends in South Carolina, with fireworks and beauty queens, heat and humidity and bands, and a crowd of 60,000 jammed into the speedway at the hamlet of Darlington for the annual running of the Southern 500 stock car race. The granddaddy of them all, they call it. You'll see it on Wide World of Sports today, along with the World Wrestling Championship from Manchester, England. Top amateur wrestlers in real international competition. Bill Fleming will be on hand to report that one. I'm Jim McKay, speaking to you from the pit area where they're playing a kind of a number game here before the race. The numbers involved are 26, 28, 29, and 11. 26 and 28, well, that would be Junior Johnson and Fred Lorenzen, co-favorites in the race. Junior Johnson has won the pole. Fred Lorenzen will start on that same row, the first row right alongside of him. 29 and 11, well, that's Dick Hutcherson and Ned Jarrett. They've been in a year-long battle for the NASCAR Point Championship, which is on a basis of points won in all of the races that are contested on the circuit through the year. There are other stories here today. For example, this is the first time during this season that there's been a real challenge to the factory Fords from privately entered Plymouths, Dodges, and Chevys. That should be an interesting story to follow. Following that story with us will be one of the great race drivers of all time, the great Indianapolis champion, Roger Ward. Roger, it's a pleasure to have you with us working on Wide World of Sports.
Well, thank you very much. I'm certainly looking forward to this one.
What would you say is the particular challenge, the particular thing about this track that makes it different from others?
Well, it's the shape of the track. The fact that one end has a high bank, the room enough for 2 automobiles, and the other end has a lesser bank and room just for 1 automobile. So you have to go through 3 and 4 in single file, where going into 1 and 2 you possibly could get side by side and pass.
This is in no sense an oval then. You can't just get a groove and stay in it. You have to make each turn differently for every one of the 364 laps.
That's right, and actually this racetrack is probably the most difficult track in the country to get a car set up for properly because of the variance in the bank.
There's an important pre-race story at the moment. The favorite, Junior Johnson, was sick overnight. Our other commentator, Chris Economaki of National Speed Sport News, is with the favorite right now down in the pits.
Junior, how much of an advantage is having a pole position in this race today?
Well, it's right smart. There's a lot of wrecks here most time on the first 2 or 3 laps, and if you're out front, you don't get involved in them, and if you can survive them and your car lasts, most time you'll be able to finish the race.
Doesn't the man on the outside front row have a little bit better here?
I don't think so. If a car's going the first turn equal down here side by side, then he's in the wrong groove. He's got to beat you to the first turn to have the advantage.
Junior, what's it going to take to beat Freddie today?
Well, I think we can just live. Our car stays together. I believe we'll be able to handle him pretty good because our car runs real good.
How are you feeling personally? You sound a little bit down.
I got the flu. I've had it for a couple of days. I really feel rough.
Think it's going to affect your abilities?
I don't have no idea.
Well, Junior, we want to wish you well, and thanks.
Thank you.
That's the story from the favorite, and right here is the fellow who stands to inherit this Southern 500 should Junior Johnson not be able to finish. We'll be back in just a minute with the start of the big race. Here are the top qualifiers. Junior Johnson, number 26, Fred Lorenzen, number 28, nearing the start of the Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina. Number 21 is Marvin Panch, and 15, Earl Balmer. Number 16 is Balmer's teammate, in a Mercury also. That is Darrell Dieringer. Car number 29, Dick Hutcherson. 41 is Jim Pascal, and alongside of him is Curtis Turner, making his first appearance in more than 4 years on the NASCAR circuit. Number 27 is Cale Yarborough. And right behind him in car number 24, that's Sam McQuagg. Of course, we'll be spotting all these cars for you as they participate in the battle for the lead in this race. They're going through the interesting third turn there. We'll talk more about that later. Right now, the green flag is out, and it looks as if we're going to get a start, Roger. What are these fellows thinking about in these cars as they near the start?
Well, right now, everyone's thinking about what he might do to better himself. At the start of the race, there's quite a bit of confusion, and if a driver's really on the ball, he can pick up several spots.
A good time to gain, but I should think a fairly dangerous time with all this traffic.
Well, it is. Of course, the driver has to react from instinct here. He doesn't plan anything. Just take advantage of whatever spot he can get. Looks like they're accelerating.
Going to be a good start.
There they go. The green flag is out.
That's Junior Johnson going for the lead, low down, and it looks like he's going to get it. He's got it. Junior Johnson in the lead. Marvin Panch tried to sneak by Freddie Lorenzen in second, but couldn't make it. So it's Junior Johnson in the lead, Freddie Lorenzen second, and Marvin Panch third, and that's the way many people think this race could easily end today. Junior Johnson streaking down the backstretch. Favorite in the race. 60,000 people looking on as they go through the third turn for the first time. That's the one where they pick up what they call the Darlington stripe as they rub
Looks
it.
like Junior Johnson's in trouble. He's pulling down off the racetrack, out of the groove at least.
The favorite in the race, it looks quite obvious. He's coming into the pits right now, and there's nothing scheduled about that pit stop on the first lap. Freddie Lorenzen takes over the lead then, just that quickly. Marvin Panch is second. There is no smoke or anything coming from Johnson's car, Roger. Nothing apparently of a dire emergency nature.
Probably something minor in the engine that they forgot to do, and he pulled in to get it done as quickly as possible. Okay, well, if he can do that, it wouldn't make that much difference in the long run because this is a 500-mile race, and it could be caught up. He's a very fast car. Lorenzen, the leader at the moment, however. Chris Economaki is down in the pits with Junior. Let's see if we can find out what the problem is.
Junior, what seems to be the trouble?
One went out on ignition. I don't know what it is.
Ignition problems on Junior Johnson's number 26. Now, back to you, Jim.
Well, Roger, from the sound of that, it might be a little more important than we thought. Junior out of the car, and he said ignition trouble, and that has been known to take a couple of hours.
Yes, and when the driver gets out, you can bet he's got some serious problems.
Well, Freddie Lorenzen's the leader. Let's see what his pre-race strategy was.
Freddie, you're in the outside front row, and you've never won a Southern 500. How are you going to drive the race?
Well, Chris, I plan to lay back quite a bit for the first 300 miles. It seems every time I try to run way up front, I always have some sort of trouble. I think I'll just feel myself out today and wait to make my move, maybe run third or fourth. All depends on the pace. I'd like to run right around 136 all day. If they run slower, I'll try to lead it, but if they run faster, I'll just sit there probably third or fourth spot for the first 200 to 300 miles.
That was Fred Lorenzen speaking before the race. He said he hoped to lay back, Roger. However, right now he's inherited the lead. There's not too much he can do about it for the moment.
No, actually, Freddie's a very smart race driver, and he's not abusing his automobile. The lead will probably change before too long, but if Freddie can lead as easily as he is now, he'll stay there.
Well, there he is out in front, the fellow who was the first man ever to win more than $100,000 in race earnings on the NASCAR circuit in 1 year, a couple of years ago. One of the few northern stock car drivers, by the way. Look, there's the first crash of the day. Car number 23, that's Buren Skeen, was hit, and he's hit again between the third and fourth turns. The first time he was hit by Rick Wickersham in car number 03, and he was hit on the driver's side. It looked like fairly hard, Roger.
Yes, he was, and actually he could be in serious trouble because that car hit him right in the door, and of course that's where he's sitting. However, these automobiles do have good, strong roll bars and cages, and he could survive an accident like that very easily.
That's right. As you point out, it's not only a roll bar in these stock cars, it's a whole cage built into the thing that makes it a very sturdy mechanism. The yellow flag, of course, has been put out again, indicating that the cars may not pass each other. However, they may bunch up, and that makes a big difference in these NASCAR races.
However, this yellow flag is a little too early to do anybody any good.
Well, Junior Johnson is out of the race. The favorite definitely out. We're still in the early laps of what obviously is going to be a very, very interesting Southern 500 in Darlington, South Carolina. The favorite, Junior Johnson, is out of the race. The new leader now is Fred Lorenzen in car number 28, and moving up very quickly is car number 16, that black and white car, as it appears on your screen, driven by Darrell Dieringer. He was in fourth place. He is now past Marvin Panch and moved up into second. Looks like Darrell might be gone somewhere.
Yes, I think he's making his move now. He's run enough laps that his tires are properly scuffed in, so he's going to try to go for the lead.
That's an interesting point. In other words, in the first 3 or 4 laps, he just stayed where he was to literally get his tires a little rough and a little tackier on the track.
Well, actually, the tires have to be scuffed in a little bit so that you have a little more latitude. When the tires are brand new and the edges are real sharp, they don't stick quite as good as they do a little later on after they've been scuffed in.
Well, he's after Fred Lorenzen right now. Is Darrell Dieringer in second place. In third position is Marvin Panch. Then we have Earl Balmer, who is Dieringer's teammate. Behind him, Dick Hutcherson. Then Cale Yarborough, Jim Pascal, and Ned Jarrett. That's the first 7 at this moment. But the big battle is right for the lead as the sun glints off them on this hot, humid afternoon here in the Southland. Now, let's see. He won't be... Didn't try in the third or fourth turn, but this is the place, isn't it, where he'd like to...
Yes, he gets back off and makes a little run at him. Looks like he's going to make it this time because he gets back a few car lengths, makes a run, and gets his speed up, and then is able to get even with Freddie going into 1. and is able to take over the lead.
As the race develops, you at home can see how the race is run pretty much here at Darlington. Third and fourth turns are pretty much out for passing, and that first one's where they really like to do it.
That's right. In turn 1 and 2, the cars can get together, and of course they're capable of passing. But through 3 and 4, the groove there is entirely too narrow. You just can't do any passing.
44 cars started in this race, by the way. Several of them have already dropped out, and before they
there's a little trouble there. Derringer, moving into that slower automobile, gave him a little bump. That could be very costly when you're leading a race like this.
Sure could, but he got away with it that time. That's the story at the moment. Darrell Derringer in the lead. What was his pre-race strategy? Let's find out.
Darrell, you're driving a year-old Mercury. Isn't it rather tired for a race like this?
Well, not really, Chris, because the boys, they keep the car in real good shape, and anything needs replaced, we always try to keep everything new on it.
The car is aerodynamically better than many for this kind of racing, isn't it?
It definitely, on the major speedways, it runs a little bit quicker than some of the other cars.
How are you going to run today's race?
Well, I don't know. If I can get a lead on the first lap, they better get their best hold.
Well, we want to wish you well. Darrell Derringer.
That's what he said before the race. Right now, he's doing all the talking with a powerful engine inside that Mercury of his. Darrell Derringer is the leader. Marvin Panch is in third place, just behind Freddie Lorenzen. Those are the top three. And Freddie dropping back there, Roger, just as he said he would.
Yes, I think he's driving the race now that he planned all along. He's just satisfied to be back perhaps a few hundred yards from the lead. And
oh, excuse me, there is Marvin Panch, pouring smoke out the rear and spinning. This could be a bad one.
Certainly could. He's right in the groove. Oh, a car got by underneath. Boy, that's amazing how those cars can avoid an automobile in that condition.
Then we saw the rest of the field going by on top. It was just a matter of a split second there. Why is it that a car, when it blows an engine there, spins so quickly?
Well, it's because the oil and the water from the engine get underneath the right rear tire. And, of course, that's the tire that requires adhesion if you're going to stay in control. When that happens, the car goes out of control.
Well, the yellow flag is out, of course, while they clean that oil and water from the track or try to dry it up a little bit, at least. And it looks like Marvin Panch is out of the race. Another car has gone by the boards. Here are the leaders taking advantage of the yellow flag to pit. We'll be back in a minute. The leaders continue to make their pit stops in the Southern 500. The yellow flag is still out, and it looks like it'll be a while before this track is cleaned up again. That's the way things stand at this moment, then, in the Southern 500. And, of course, we'll be returning here to Darlington very shortly. Right now, however, again, it's time to broaden the world of sport. Travel across the seas to Manchester, England, and the World Wrestling Championships. Here's Bill Fleming. Thanks very much. Well, as the day brightens here and the weather's getting better all the time, the action gets more furious in the 1965 edition of the Southern 500 Stock Car Race. Standing by, ready to assist us with the commentary, is one of the all-time racing greats, Roger Ward. So let's get right back to the action. Standings right now show that Darrell Derringer in car number 16 there is still the leader in this race, as he has been most of the afternoon since the favorite, Junior Johnson, broke down on the first lap, and Freddie Lorenzen in car number 28 there was content to play a waiting game and drop back into third or fourth position. Right now, however,
looks like they're getting together a little bit. Could be serious trouble. Looks like they got out of it all right, however.
That was Freddie Lorenzen as he was passing Cale Yarborough to move up in the standings there. They actually touched at that point. How dangerous was that, Roger?
Well, that could have been pretty dangerous. However, with two experienced drivers like that, you notice Cale gave a little ground as Freddie slipped a little bit. They got together momentarily, but their experience kept them from being any more serious than it actually was.
Well, we're past the midway point in this race right now, and Freddie Lorenzen...
Oh, there's a spin out.
That's Junior Spencer in car number 17. Spinning out, not hit by anybody. It doesn't look like the man himself is in any serious trouble, nor is his car. However, it's enough that there's a little debris on the track. The yellow flag goes out again, and we've sure had plenty of that today.
We certainly have. It's been a very exciting race so far.
It certainly has, and even now it is just beginning to develop into what should be its final stages. Freddie Lorenzen, very much in contention with that Darlington stripe on the side of his car. They picked that up as they got through that third turn and actually touched the fence time after time. All the leaders beginning to pit now.
To this point, Freddie's been pretty lucky. Every time he's needed a pit stop, there's been a yellow flag. Of course, Darrell's coming in also, so there's no real advantage to either driver.
Right. Well, we'll be back in just a minute. We're back at Darlington, South Carolina again. We're in the midway going of the Southern 500 1965 edition. The leader is car number 24 all of a sudden. That's Sam McQuagg of Columbus, Georgia. The green flag is out again, and after the pit stops had straightened themselves out, Sam found himself in first place. In second at the moment is the veteran car number 41 driver, Jim Pascal. Third place is Cale Yarborough in car number 27, and dropping back into fourth place is the earlier leader, Darrell Diringer. So, quite a few changes on that pit stop, Roger.
Certainly are. Actually, this young man's been driving a really fine race, took advantage of the pit stops, and has inherited the lead. Running back in about 5th, 6th, 7th position, whatever spot he can pick up, and staying out of trouble.
He and Ned Jarrett have been back there around 6th or 7th and just biding their time. Ned is still back in there, of course.
Of course, Ned's driving a very consistent race. Still got a great chance to win.
That's another story we hope to get to as we go along. Car number 29, Dick Hutcherson. Car number 11, Ned Jarrett, battling it out for the NASCAR point lead. We mentioned that at the beginning of the race. There, at the moment, is Cale Yarborough, who is in third position. He's a fellow who did very well at Daytona Beach last winter, and last spring in the Rebel 300 he drove very well till his car was forced out. Coming driver at the age of 26.
Certainly is. He's a young man trying to make a great impression, driving a very, very hard race, trying to keep this good ride that he's got.
Well, there he is right now, moving out, and I think he's going to try to take car number 41. There's that first turn again. They always pass.
Yeah, this is the place where they have to pass if they're going to.
So Cale Yarborough moves into second position. Pascal is now third, but right behind him is Darrell Diringer.
Darrell probably trying to make his move to get back into the lead.
Freddie Lorenzen, meanwhile, is still back in fifth position, playing that biding his time, waiting game that he's been doing all afternoon. His car in real good shape, apparently. You don't see the leader at the moment. That's the second place car on the left of your screen. Cale Yarborough beginning to close in on Sam McQuagg in car number 24.
There's Diringer trying to pass Pascal. Looks like he'll get by all right.
He has, and so now we have a new order of the top three. It's Sam McQuagg in the lead. Second place, Cale Yarborough. Third place, Darrell Diringer. McQuagg at the moment with about a 200-yard lead. And so with these two new cars very much in the strategy, let's see how Cale Yarborough saw this race before it began. Chris Akatamaki talked to him.
Cale, at Daytona, number 27 was our whole show practically, and you emerged as a new star. How do you feel about coming to this big one in the same automobile?
Well, I feel real good. The car's running real good, and I hope it's going to be the same way today as it was in Daytona.
Do you have a lot of confidence?
A real lot. Banjo Matthews, my chief mechanic, has really put a lot of work into the car. Fine, I hope.
How are you going to run the race?
Same way I did at Daytona, all out.
Well, we want to wish you well, Cale Yarborough.
Well, that was toe-headed Cale Yarborough before the race, and there you see him right now closing in on Sam McQuagg. Looks like we're going to have a little racing here, Roger.
You certainly are. He's living up to what he said he was going to do. He's driving all out, and he's out to get that lead.
Let's take a little tour of the course now as they battle for the lead. There's that first turn. That's where the passing happens, right?
Yes, this is the place where normally you would be able to pass. If you can get even with the man going into the first turn, you have a slight advantage. Then, of course, you ride through the second turn, coming out on a back straightaway, and get in line to go into turn number 3.
When you say get in line, you mean exactly that. There's
That's
only room
right.
for one car there, right? Right there.
That's right. You can tell because the white line is so much closer to the fence. There's really only room for one automobile. You don't dare let your automobile get down below that white line because that's the flat surface of the racetrack and the car could easily get out of control.
We had a quick look at Freddie Lorenzen in car number 28 there as he continues, as we said, to hang back around 5th place. He's very much in this race. Don't count him out at all.
This is the third and fourth turn that these cars are going through right now, and you can see how narrow the groove actually is.
The fourth turn here is where you set up for a little speed on the straightaway to get ready for the pass on the first turn again.
That's right. Normally a car would drop back just a little bit and then make his run. As he approaches the straightaway, he turns down a little bit, tries to get even going into turn number 1.
These, of course, are all the things that are going through Cale Yarborough's mind in car number 27 as he tries to do exactly that, set up to pass car number 24.
That's right. Of course, he has to wait till the track is clear. He couldn't do it if there were several other slower automobiles that might get into his way. And when he makes his run, he wants to get all the way by.
Meanwhile, he has to be somewhat aware, does he not, of Darrell Diringer, who is just about 6 feet behind him.
He certainly better be, because that Darrell's trying to pass him. He looks like he's going to make his move now. Whoops, he didn't get far enough up, and those boys are in trouble.
Oh, Yarborough right out of the racetrack. We could just see his car tumbling end over end, and that's the last we've seen of it. There's McQuagg, who was in the crash with him, in number 24. That car's a wreck. Can't imagine what the one outside the track is. Leroy Yarborough was also involved in it. In car number 3, you saw the trunk lid fly off that. This could be bad, Roger.
It certainly could. I don't know how those other cars got by.
Saw McQuagg throwing his helmet to the ground. The yellow flag is out. We'll try to find out everything we can about this crash, and we'll be back in just a minute. There's Sam McQuagg, who was involved just a minute ago in that stunning accident with Cale Yarborough, anxiously waiting for word on the other driver's condition. No one in the track knows it. Here is that accident again in slow motion. Roger, see if you can see exactly what happened.
Well, it looks as though Cale, in attempting to pass, didn't get far enough up. He didn't get even, in other words, and when he did finally contact the other automobile,
right
he
there.
put him sideways in front of him. And then, of course, the two cars sliding together towards the wall, and Cale Yarborough getting up and over, and you can see that car flipping as it goes over the wall.
You sure could. In other words, that right front fender got up, and it was like a ski jump from there on.
That's right.
There was Leroy Yarborough, who also got involved in the crash, losing his trunk lid. And now, here is the unbelievable word, Roger. Cale Yarborough has been brought back inside the track, and he is okay.
Almost
okay all the way. Apparently, Chris Economaki is going to try to have a word with him in a minute. While Chris is making his way down there, we better get back to the race. Kind of hard to get our attention on that again, Roger, but the green flag is out again. Most of the leaders made pit stops, but according to the scoreboard, the leader right now, and this is a temporary situation probably, is Ned Jarrett in car number 11. Jim Pascal in car number 41 is second. And then we have Fred Lorenzen in car number 28 and Darrell Dieringer in 16.
Well, certainly the reason that Ned Jarrett is leading the race at the moment is because he hasn't made his third pit stop yet. When he does, why, of course, probably Freddie will go back in the lead, or Darrell.
So from a realistic viewpoint, these are the two cars still battling for the lead, 28 and 16. They've been in the picture all the way ever since the first lap when Junior Johnson dropped out, and it looks like it may be that way all the long afternoon here in South Carolina. The temperature today, by the way, not quite as hot as it has been on other occasions. It's plenty hot and humid. But here is Ned Jarrett coming into the pits right now. This pit stop, since it's on a green flag, is going to cost him a lot more time than it would under the caution.
Yes, it certainly is. And as a matter of fact, this could be a very costly pit stop. Could cost him the race.
Jim Pascal will also have to make a pit stop like this sometime in the next few minutes, and as Roger indicated, that'll mean that 28 and 16 will be out in front again, even technically in the standings. Chris Economaki is down there with Cale Yarborough, and it looks like he's going to be able to have a word with him. Let's go down there for that right now.
Cale, it's good to see you standing here. What happened down there?
Sam McQuagg was leading the race, and I was running second. And as I started down under him in there, into the corner, my right front fender caught his door, and he crossed up in front of him, and I slid off his car into the guardrail, and it climbed the guardrail and went over.
What kind of a ride down was it?
Well, it felt about like those astronauts been up in space 8 days. It felt about like 8 days I was up there, too.
How far did the car go, Cale?
Oh, I don't know. Must have went 200 yards.
And did you have any injuries at all?
No, none whatsoever. I was lucky.
Did they get the breath knocked out of you?
No, I was real lucky.
Well, you certainly were. It was spectacular to see. Here's Sam now coming in to sort of wish you guys. What'd you think of it when you saw it happen, Sam?
I just hated it all happen. I was just praying that Cale wasn't hurt. I seen him go over the wall, and I was real afraid for him. I didn't know what might have happened when he went over.
How bad's your car, Cale?
Oh, it's total. You can't even recognize it.
Well, there it is, and back to you, Jim McKay.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Out on the track, the race continues, and here is Dieringer again trying to take the lead from Lorenzen. What is that?
It looks as though the race has developed something of a pattern. Dieringer attempting to lead whenever he can, and of course Lorenzen playing that waiting game. You don't know how much he's got, but certainly he must be content with the way his car is performing.
On that interview, it looked like Sam McQuagg was more shaken by waiting to find out what had happened to Cale than Cale was himself by flipping through the air for about 200 feet outside the track. The standings then, Darrell Dieringer back in the lead, Fred Lorenzen second, and we've still got a long way to go here at Darlington, South Carolina. Again, it's time to leave the Southern 500 temporarily. We will be back, of course, and when we come back, it will be for the finish. Quite a finish it should be in this year's Classic in the Southland. Thank you very much. Well, we're still here in the pit area at the Darlington Speedway in South Carolina. The event, remember, is the Southern 500, and quite an event it's been so far. Standing with me is one of the great race drivers of all time still, Roger Ward. Roger, we started out with 44 cars. We now have 18 left. That's a pretty high rate of attrition.
Certainly is. A lot of broken hearts around here because quite a number of drivers had a chance to win, and one thing or another has put them out of the race.
It seems to be the nature of this race course here that it is very hard on the automobile.
It's a very, very demanding racetrack, and if the car isn't put together perfectly, you could have trouble.
Okay, let's get back to the action. Action there is aplenty. There is the leader at the moment, Fred Lorenzen, who has been hanging back most of the afternoon, but now has taken the lead. In second place at the moment is car number 11, driven by Ned Jarrett. Ned has been in 5th or 6th position most of the afternoon, but on the pit stop changes, from time to time, he moves up to 1st or 2nd. That's the story at the moment. In 3rd place, but really a kind of a more realistic 2nd, is car number 16, driven by Darrell Dieringer. In 4th place, number 29, driven by Dick Hutcherson. There's Ned in car number 11, Roger.
Yeah, and Dieringer's right behind him, probably going to try to get back into 2nd position, take after Freddie again. In fact, there's Ned moving over and let Dieringer go. I think probably Ned has some problems with his automobile, maybe overheating, or perhaps he's not too happy with the chassis and has to run just as fast as he can, trying to stay out of trouble.
Well, the way he pulled over there and let Dieringer go by certainly would indicate that a car that's in contention in the race normally would not drop down like that and let the guy go by.
Well, the great competitor that Ned is, he wouldn't do that unless he did have some kind of trouble. I think he's trying desperately to finish this race so he can collect as many points as possible. You know, there is a great battle between he and Hutcherson for the point lead, and he is trying desperately to finish the race.
Just nursing her around, but not too slow. So if he goes too slow, he gets behind Hutcherson. Well, here comes Hutcherson now into the pits. So this is kind of a battle within a battle that's going on in this race. And Hutcherson's car is pretty beat up, as you can see. Somewhere along the line, he hits something or somebody with his left front fender.
That's right, a spinning car over on the back side of the racetrack. I didn't even see it happen, but a lot of things going on in this race. In fact, so many that it's absolutely impossible to see them all. But of course, Dick's been driving a fine race and trying desperately to hang in there.
Well, the hood is up, and they're also going to change those tires on the right side to try to keep Dick Hutcherson running till the finish. We're in the closing 50 miles of this race here at Darlington, South Carolina, 500 miles altogether, and there's the leader again, passing slower cars, Fred Lorenzen of Elmhurst, Illinois.
Fred's driven a really great race.
Excuse me. Yeah, look, a lot of smoke coming out from underneath Dick Hutcherson's car. What's it look like to you, Roger?
Well, probably broke a piston or something, or perhaps his fire equipment has malfunctioned, so he's in serious trouble.
But the jacks are out from underneath the car. Let's beginning to push. And that does not look too good, does it?
Looks to me like the car is going behind the rail. He must be out. Of course, this is a big break for Ned Jarrett. In fact, he would be able to slow down even more now and get a good chance of finishing the race.
Well, Roger, we always have wild races here at Darlington, but this one's unbelievable.
Well, it certainly is. I would say the racetrack lives up to its reputation.
It sure has. Junior Johnson going out on the first lap. Of course, that was just the trouble with his car.
Yes.
But Marvin Penn spun out this incredible thing with Cale Yarborough. What's it look like from here?
Well, it's hard to say. It would seem as though the race is right now between Lorenzen and
Darrell Dieringer?
Darrell Dieringer, yes. They seem to be running faster than anyone else on the racetrack.
Fred Lorenzen told us before the race that he was going to lay back for the first 300 miles and then maybe make his move. Well, so far, that certainly has kept him out of the trouble that's occurred up on the front of the pack.
Well, actually, the 2 or 3 times that there's been trouble up there, he's been sitting just in a position where he could avoid it all. Right. And the yellow flags have been a very important factor. He's been able to make his pit stops when he needed to, which has given him a great advantage.
Marvin Panch's spin and the accident with Cale Yarborough both took place at exactly the same spot between the first and second turns. Is there anything in the nature of that turn that could cause
Well, no, Marvin Panch's spin was caused by him blowing an engine. So it really wasn't his fault. This is the only turn, or that 1 and 2, where they could pass. So actually the cars get side by side there, and anything that happens could happen in that spot.
Here's the leader in the race. First prize money, about $20,000 on the line. Freddie Lorenzen here, one of the top drivers in all the world of stock car racing, has never won this race. He has a tremendous determination to do it. Really is important to him. You can tell that talking to Freddie before the race.
Certainly was. Looks like Freddie's preparing to make a pit stop now. I think perhaps this is one of his regular scheduled pit stops, but we'll soon see.
It's certainly one of the few he's taken today on a green flag. The way the accidents and things have been falling, he and Derringer have been able to make almost all of their pit stops on the caution.
That's right, and of course, these are the very important pit stops, because if his crew happened to slow down a little bit, it could cost him the race. Look at the side of that automobile. Look how it's all marked up from riding against the rail.
That's on that third turn, right, where they're single file.
That's right.
So they're bringing out new tires for Fred Lorenzen on the right side of the car. Of course, that right front is the one that gets pushed into that pavement as they go around the turns. There they are working on that side of the car. Meanwhile, the fuel is being put in the other side. Chris Economaki is down there. There goes Chris just over the pit wall there. Now maybe he's going to be able to get a word.
Freddie, do you have it made? I got trouble. Fred Lorenzen's in trouble. What that means, we don't know, but you heard him say it.
We didn't expect to hear that. Fred Lorenzen saying he's in trouble. We'll be back in a minute. We're back at Darlington, and in what must be the wildest of all the Southern 500s, and they're usually pretty wild, Ned Jarrett is coming into the pits again. Now, it was only a few laps ago that he came in, so he must, as you indicated, Roger, be having some pretty bad trouble.
Well, actually, I think this is just an insurance pit stop. With Dick Hutchison out of the race, they probably are making the necessary tire changes and things that he can go all the way. And they can slow down a little bit because actually the fourth place car is several laps back, and they want to ensure a third place finish.
And once again, to keep all these things straightened out, when you say Hutchison is out, we're referring to the battle between Jarrett and Hutchison for the year-long NASCAR title. Now, meanwhile, Darrell Derringer is back in first place in this race, and Freddie Lorenzen in car number 28 has gone back into second place ahead of Jarrett on that pit stop.
That's right, and of course that was a real good pit stop, so Ned didn't lose too much, and he still got a real good shot. In fact, he could win the race.
In fourth place at this moment is car number 86, co-driven, in fact, by Buck and Buddy Baker, the father and son team. L.Z. Wiley Baker Sr. and Jr., to be formal about it.
That's right. Actually, Buck started in this automobile, and then Junior took over for him as the race progressed.
That's right. Buck was the winner of this race just 1 year ago, by the way. This is Darrell Derringer, however, and he and Fred Lorenzen have been the fellas who have been consistent all the way through.
Buck has driven a fine race today, and with the help of Junior. Of course, Junior started his own automobile and experienced trouble, was forced out, so he's relieved his father, and they've driven a really fine race today in an automobile that isn't quite as fast as some of the others, and of course they've had to make more than their share of pit stops. That's them following right now, and there's Freddie Lorenzen back in the pits.
Now this should be the true indication of what in the world is wrong. He said he was having trouble. He obviously is. It hasn't been that long since he came in before, and the hood is up.
They're not going to change the tires.
They also don't seem to be hurrying too much, which is usually a bad sign.
Well, it's certainly unfortunate because Fred has driven a really fine race. He's calling his pit crew back for consultation. Apparently the trouble is very serious, but because they don't even seem to be trying to fix it.
No, sir. It looks like the jinx that has followed Freddie Lorenzen through all his career in this race, the Southern 500, the one that these drivers perhaps want to win the most of all, has caught up with him again. He's really discouraged looking.
He certainly is. That's Ralph Moody giving him a few words of encouragement there. Of course, there's nothing you could say to Freddie.
Look, excuse me, Roger. That is Darrell Derringer pouring smoke from the rear of his car.
Looked as though he must have blown the engine. He's coming to the pits.
So that on the same lap, the two leaders in this race both may have gone out completely. We don't know about Derringer, but that sure doesn't look good when those heavy billows of smoke are coming out, although it seems to have died down just a little bit now as he comes in.
Yeah, he's heading for the pits, and looks like he's coming in rather fast, so maybe he thinks they can fix whatever the problem is. Looks like the smoke is coming from the right rear wheel. He may have had a brake failure. Actually, that couldn't be because he stopped the automobile rather quickly. Maybe he tore an oil line or something loose. They're trying to see if they can find the problem.
They don't look like they know either, the way they're peeking in there. Very much as I would if my car broke down on the turnpike.
Look at that smoke.
Gee.
Well, apparently they're trying to put a fire out underneath the automobile. That's what the problem is. They've got a fire around the rear end of that automobile.
Any idea what might have caused it?
Well, it'd be difficult to say right at the moment.
Well, they're not going to try to find out right now. They're going to send that car back on the track because Darrell Derringer is still the leader. Ned Jarrett was about a lap and a half behind and hasn't caught him yet on that pit stop.
Actually, that was a pretty darn quick pit stop, so there really hasn't been too much ground lost.
The question, of course, is what is wrong with the car and how bad is it? There's Ned Jarrett, who's in second place at the moment and closing in. Freddie Lorenzen is down there with Chris. Let's see how he feels about this latest disappointment.
Freddie, have you ever had a tougher break in racing?
No, Chris, this is the one I really wanted.
You had it won. What happened?
No, I guess I started running warm. I guess I must have lost a head gasket.
Well, you look beautiful out there. Did you have a little squeak with Cale Yarborough earlier in the race?
No, I never had no problem all day. Never pushed the car, just like a Sunday ride. Never even opened it up yet.
So near and yet so far, huh, Freddie?
Looks like I'll never get this one.
Oh, there's always next year. Cheer up.
Maybe.
Right. Thank you, Freddie Lorenzen.
Well, there's no question after that how important this race was to Fred Lorenzen, but now again on the track, here's the story. Here comes Derringer in again, and what in the world's the matter with the rear this time?
Well, he's got a flat right rear tire. Apparently, that overheated brake must have burned the inner tube or something, and that tire's gone flat. He probably hit the wall. In fact, you can see that he has. The bumper's been torn loose back there. It appears as though his problem is very serious.
Sure does. The mechanics apparently burning their fingers every time they touch anything on the rear of that car. And there goes Ned Jarrett by, taking the lead in this race. And this time it's no temporary deal. He's the real leader.
That's right. They're trying to put that tire on and try to get him back out there. He could probably still get second in this race if he can keep the car performing.
No question of that, because that third place car, Buck and Buddy Baker, was 7 laps behind. They're still about 5.5 laps behind the first 2 cars.
Boy, I've never seen a race like this, and believe me, I've seen a lot of them.
Well, you sure have seen plenty of them in 20 years of great race driving, Roger. There he goes, back out on the track again. Derringer still in second place with what is left of his automobile. The question now, which of these battered survivors will go all the way? We'll find out in a minute. In the closing laps of the Southern 500 here in South Carolina, Darrell Derringer is into the pits yet again. Roger, what's the simplest way you can explain what's happened to this car?
Well, actually, they've had a grease seal that is broken, and it allows the grease and from the rear end to get out onto a hot brake drum, and it continually catches on fire. So they have to come in every 3 or 4 laps to put the fire out.
Okay, put it out, send the car out again. It's still smoking as he goes out this time, but that's about all they can do about it. He's trying to finish this race. If he finishes, he'll hold on to second place because, as we pointed out, he's still a long way ahead of the car that's in third position. That's the 86 car of Buck and Buddy Baker. The leader, of course, is Ned Jarrett, who, if he wins this race, will not only win the race itself, but will win the, to all practical intents and purposes, the NASCAR championship for the year, and that's very highly prized by these drivers, of course.
Well, it certainly is, and of course this is a great credit to a great driver who's been nursing an automobile that is certainly anything but in perfect condition, and as he finishes, the finishing laps come along, he's doing a great job of keeping that automobile running.
And here he is. That is Ned Jarrett. This car, number 11. Ned is a very personable man, by the way, from Camden, South Carolina. A very easy guy to be around, isn't he, Roger?
Yes, he is. And here's Buddy Baker back in the pits again. They're trying to get that automobile so it'll finish the race, too. And, of course, this is one of the reasons that they're so many laps behind is because of the lengthy pit stops it's been necessary for them to make. And, of course, there's Darrell Derringer. Finally, he's all through, stopped on the back straightaway.
So after coming all this way, he has to give up the ghost with just a couple of laps to go. Derringer is out of the race. Ned Jarrett leads all by himself. The second place car is now the Buck and Buddy Baker car. And cars that you've never heard of all through the race will be moving up very high into the final standings, it looks like.
Certainly been an incredible race. I've never seen so many automobiles with problems. Of course, we've had quite a few taken out as a result of accidents, too. So certainly been an interesting and incredible finish on this race.
And Ned Jarrett, we can be sure, has his fingers crossed as he gets the white flag. That means one more lap to go, because as we pointed out a number of times, his car is not in the best of condition. He's just about making it around.
I think from here he can probably coast around and get the checkered flag. Of course, he'd want very much to make a safety lap to be sure that he's gone the entire 500 miles.
And now the second place cars try to fall in line just behind Ned to make a little orderly finish here. He's only about 10 feet behind him, but in reality, he is 14 laps behind.
Well, you can see how slow Ned is actually running here because Buddy Baker is attempting to pass it.
That's it. That is the finish line of the Southern 500, 1965, a race that will be long remembered in the Southland, and we presume by all of you who have seen it on television. The scoreboard shows us that car number 11 is the winner. Ned Jarrett, 86. Buck and Buddy Baker is second, and Darrell Dieringer is going to be placed third, although he did not actually finish the race. He had the third highest total of laps completed. Ned Jarrett completing that extra lap, coasting down now, putting on the brakes, coming up to the position where Chris Katamaki is standing by to have a word with him. Let's go down to Chris now with Ned Jarrett.
Congratulations, Ned.
Thank you, Chris.
What a ride, huh?
Well, it was quite a ride. There was no doubt about it. Don't let anyone ever tell you that prayer don't help.
Well, that's wonderful, Ned. What was the big trouble?
Well, I must have lost the fan belt, or either I had gotten some paper in the grill and lost part of the water, because every time that I would accelerate the car, it would just, the temperature would go wild. It would go to 250, so I just had to run it at about 5,000 RPMs.
Did you see Dieringer out there anywhere in the last few minutes?
Well, no, not towards the end. In fact, his car had quit on him on the backstretch, and they pushed him behind the wall over there.
Well, this sort of clinched the championship for you, and congratulations again, Ned Jarrett.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
There you have the winner of the Southern 500, Ned Jarrett, on his way to victory lane.
Okay, Chris, thanks very much. And here's the way that they have placed these cars at the ends. He heads toward victory lane. Ned Jarrett, the winner. Second place, Buck and Buddy Baker. Darrell Dieringer, as we said, is placed third. And then come cars that, as we said, you never heard of all through the race. Roy Main finished fourth. He was only 19 laps behind. Bob Darrington was fifth, 20 laps behind. H.B. Bailey was sixth, 23 laps behind. And there were 5 makes of cars among the top 6. Another Southern 500 is history then. The winner, Ned Jarrett, and by winning this race that the drivers down south here call the granddaddy of them all, Ned also just about wraps up the NASCAR Point Championship for this year. Last year's champion of the 500, Buck Baker, finished second, but before that, well, we sure had an afternoon of activity, didn't we, Roger Ward?
We certainly did. I've never seen so many cars go in so many different directions, and of course,
right.
You could call this Heartbreak Alley today because many of the great drivers and great cars were forced out as a result of mechanical problems of one kind or another.
Well, to begin with, we had the favorite, Junior Johnson, out on the first lap with mechanical trouble. We had Cale Yarborough up over the wall and out of the ballpark and unscratched, very fortunately. Marvin Panch spinning out and Freddie Lorenzen breaking down again. This race for Freddie is getting to be like the National Open for Sam Snead, isn't it?
It certainly is. He was driving a beautiful race and certainly had a great chance to win, but those mechanical problems.
That's right. Roger, it's been a great pleasure having you working with us today. Hope you'll join us soon again.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
That's the story on this week's Wide World of Sports, but there is always another. Now in the late afternoon of Darlington, it's time to take our leave of the Southern 500. The executive producer of ABC's Wide World of Sports is Roone Arledge. The Darlington 500 was produced by Chet Forty. Our director was Marvin Schlenker. Technical director, Bob Champion. Associate Director, Larry Kahn. The World Wrestling Championships were produced by Dick Kurtzner and directed by Paul Kane. Associate Directors, Lou Frederick and Joe Bush. Our Darlington pickup by WSOC-TV, Charlotte, North Carolina. Nationwide and worldwide travel arrangements for ABC's Wide World of Sports made through and promotional consideration furnished by TWA, Trans World Airlines. The preceding program originated on videotape. And now this is Jim McKay speaking also for Bill Fleming and for Roger Ward saying so long for today.